So I'd like to welcome everybody back in for the second half of the morning. We're going to make a start, so please do take your seats. And very happy to welcome to the stand Daniel Ockeloen. Thank you, Daniel.
If I can have my slides up. So slowly everybody comes in there. So we are going to talk about technology. And it's such an easy topic that I'm going to do it at 2 times the same normal speed. So if you get confused, don't worry. At the important parts, I will probably slow down. Can everybody hear me? Yeah? Okay. So let's get going. So we'll practice the speed sliding in the first few slides. So I work for a small SME. I'm kind of responsible or representing the SMEs in the project. So there's one, let's say, topic we are going to delve in a little bit more, which is going to be multi-screen, what it is and what we are bringing into the projects. If I'm talking about our toolkit, remember there's many more software bringing into that others will bring into the project, and sometimes they also called toolkits. So keep in mind that this is just one application. So as a company, we are in Amsterdam, and we focus on video applications, all kinds of video applications. And we do 3 types of projects mostly. European projects, which I will be talking about a little bit, oral history projects, and of course commercial projects. So today I will be talking about multi-screen and especially what kind of software bringing into this project, which are coming from 2 other European projects. Some of you might know them, EUscreen and LinkTV. So it's a development that we are taking from one project to another project, and it might be interesting for you to hear about it because it's both open and also reusable, so it might be something that you can use or at least you can learn something from. So let's get going. So in a way, I'm a developer, but this is going to be a sales pitch. For a product that we actually don't really have. See, the speed is going quite well now. So, well, we have it a little bit. We are using it as kind of on its way, right? It's being developed during the European projects. So, and we won't sell it, so that gives a little bit of a problem in the value chain sort of thingy. But we do want to make money. Actually, we are kind of making money, so it is possible in a way. So that's the introduction. So I will try to put it in 3 parts. And if you see 15 minutes, I'm going to bring it down to about 7 or 8 minutes and slow down at the correct points. I also put some folders in front of the stage, and we are in Amsterdam, so if you want to learn more, just come over to Amsterdam. We will invite you, go to dinner and show you stuff. So if you want more information, just contact me or contact one of the projects and you will find me. So first will be the update on the multi-screen. Multi-screen, what is it? Because I really don't understand what it is. I kind of have an idea what I think what it is, but it might be interesting sort of review it a little bit. Then some concepts and ideas. And then we'll introduce the toolkit that we are bringing into this project. And I don't think it's that important that you have to use this toolkit, but I do think it's for quite a few of you interesting to know that these tools are out there and that it is possible to do certain types of applications that you might not have thought that you could do as a, let's say, a content owner or a museum or a small developer. So I think that was one of the reasons why I decided to talk about the toolkit. So the state of second screen. Most people think about second screen and multi-screen in sort of 4 ways which are, I would say, coming up or being natural, right? The first one is providing extra information. So second screen is mostly people sitting or using an iPad and getting extra information of a television program, the stats, or if you're watching a show, extra information in the background for idols, stuff like that. So you see 2 examples here, and one example of our own, which we are doing with RBB, which is also a partner in this project. And this is kind of one thing where people think about if they hear the word second screen, providing more information, because statistics show that 80% of the people are using iPads while watching television. Most of them are most likely watching Facebook, but that's another discussion, right? But at least we know that we have these multiple screens in front of them. So the second thing that people are doing is streaming or beaming from their the small devices to the main screen, right? Or so they are doing. Oh, sorry, this is the second one. So one of the things that the people are doing is displaying their content on multiple different devices, right? So it's almost considered second screen or multi-screen if you're able as Netflix to put it on your iPad, on your iPhone, on a television, or a combination of it, right? That's a second thing where people are sort of seeing the movement coming from just television to also being available on other platforms. So it might not even still interact, it might still be just television, but then on your iPad or on your television, not combinations of it, but lots of people consider it also second screen or multi-screen or some term like that. So the third one is an interesting one because it's kind of signals the flip that is going on, where actually the main screen is not actually the starting point anymore, but most likely your mobile device is the starting point, and you're sort of beaming your content from your small screen to the big screen. Two obvious examples are the Chromecast and Apple AirPlay, where you basically have your content on the device and you're beaming it to the television or to the screens around you, right? Most of the time it's just one, but you can imagine scenarios where you can have, let's say, multiple senders and multiple receivers. But it's definitely an interesting one because it's sort of, I would almost say, grassroots in a way. It's sort of the people with the devices saying, hey, I want to use my big screen, why can't I put it on there, right? I'm pretty sure some of you are using it this way. So the fourth thing that people are thinking about when they're talking about second screen and multi-screen is anything related to gaming, right? So the idols kind of applications that you are able to vote, do social interactions, share with your friends, that's these kinds of applications. So that's what I think that second screen and multi-screen is being seen as this moment. But this is just what I think. I'm not sure if everybody agrees with me. And if you ask Google is quite difficult to get a clear definition of what it is. So as a developer it becomes quite interesting, and I tried this a few days ago, so it's good for you to try because I was wanted to even make even more slides and I needed content for it. So I put some questions into Google and tried to figure out actually what multi-screen is and how do I make such a second screen application or multi-screen application. So I didn't put all the answers here, but quite a few of them, but I would encourage you to try it yourself, and you will see it's quite difficult to even figure out how you should start as a small company or as a content owner. How do you start making these applications? And it's kind of weird if you compare it to before, because normally not everybody of course makes their own websites. Most of the time you work with a small company that does that for you, right? You have sort of partners that you go to. I think 80% of all the websites still in the world are being made by small SMEs, right? These are the natural place to go and work with them to create your website. So it's kind of difficult in this new world because to me at least it's very unclear as a content provider, for example, where you have to go. So this, we'll try to at least not answer the question, but give you some ideas about what we are doing to try to, let's say, fill the gaps, to make it possible again that you can work either yourself if you have developers, or you can work with your normal SME, your normal developer, and say, hey, there are these toolkits out there, can you incorporate it into the work that you're already doing? So just to explain to you how I see second screen and especially multi-screen, this is a picture of the first website ever made. If you haven't seen it, this is it. So it's of course at CERN, and it's a list of who is in the project and what they are doing. And what's interesting about it is that this is a single user, single device web page. It's sort of, I would almost say, lonely, right? You sort of have this web page and you click on something, you will get some more information. You have no idea if there's other people watching this screen. You have no idea if other people are adding something to it, sharing something to it. It's also one device, so if you have, let's say, your computer and you would open it up on another computer, they don't know that you are both watching. You can't sort of share it or bring it over, right? It's quite a lonely sort of experience. So then we got to our phase, and this is where most of the time we are now. It's still quite a lonely experience. We do get some comments, some other stuff, and we know there are a lot of people watching us, right? Which is fine. So the server side, if client side, server side, I hope is a sort of a known term, but the machinery in the background, they are kind of watching you, so they kind of know which screens you are looking and what you are doing and why you are doing it. So they have kind of a head start, but they are big companies, and of course they use this information most of the time to make your experience better, right? So Amazon, for example, they will look at all this information, they know exactly what you are doing if you're on their properties, and they do that hopefully to create a better experience. So they already have this multi-screen, sort of multi-user way of thinking about them. But most of the, let's say, the people on the other side, they don't have these tools and they don't have these possibilities. So what if that was not the case? And the reason why I'm saying that is up to now, who here has made a web page in his life or used a tool to make a web page? That's good. I guess 50%, and I'm pretty sure the others sometimes have worked with WordPress or something similar, right? Who here would be able to figure out how to make a multi-screen or a TV application? It will probably be very few people, right? So somehow we have lost something that you can't have this almost amateur, in the good sense of the word, way of approaching the problem. There are very little, and I've tried to look for it myself, there are very little tools that actually help you along, maybe by yourself or with your company that you normally work for, to do that. So, but it is possible, and I think even if you look at the original specifications from Tim Berners-Lee, it was much more an interactive concept to begin with, and only half of it was kind of implemented in many ways. So you could imagine a system, and hopefully we'll grow there, where a web page is much more an interactive sort of thing, where you, per definition not alone, you can see who's watching, you can maybe even default share stuff among each other. That is not a lonely experience to begin with. So what we are trying to do is at least make a, let's say, make a head start there. I don't think our toolkit will ever be the standard, I doubt it, and I know that there are standards coming up, but it will still take a few years, where hopefully some of these more interactive things will be more default. Because the big companies, they have these environments. Most people don't think about it, but to me these are three, what I would call multi-screen applications. You probably don't think about it, but if you're in Google Docs, and I'm pretty sure most people are using Google Docs here, right? You can see all the others on the web page. You can work together. You can work with your friends, with your colleagues. You can see what is happening. I would consider this a multi-screen application. I didn't put Skype here because most people see it as an application, so I put like Hangouts here, right? Hangouts is also a multi-screen application. You go there and somehow the system will automatically link up these different screens in different places with different users into one experience, right? Everybody still with me? I guess so. So, and Facebook is of course the same, but the downside of these systems is that they require quite big backends, right? So these companies run these systems and they are quite, I would say, heavy and closed, right? So it's very hard to program compared to something like HTML. And there are no standards yet that kind of solve this problem. There are standards which are slowly sort of trying to standardize how do we send something from your main screen, so from your mobile screen to your main screen. There are standards coming up how to, let's say, connect your television, and I will quickly show you a few, how to sort of make applications for your smart TV, but there's no real, I would say, complete standard that tries to make it just as easy to make a multi-screen application or multi-screen web page or web pages compared to, let's say, the lonely HTML based I do everything myself on this space sort of systems. So that is kind of the question. What if you could always sort of come up with applications that use all the screens around you, right? What kind of things could we do? What kind of interesting applications could we make? And we don't all have to think about an application that uses your television as it is now. It doesn't have to be a standard sort of second screen application. So I've put down a few examples. Let me first say something. I like this slide, at least some people, when I show it, like this slide. This is sort of the development from my experience since 1993 when I started making websites. So in the beginning, you see sort of the 1994 to 1998 sort of range. We were almost nothing was possible. People seem to forget that sometimes. But for example, you could not make background colors, right? So the moment I was working for a television station, a quite sort of interesting one, and the moment that we were allowed to do background colors, we had a big Skype sort of going up in that we made something new. And then we were able to do like frames, and we would go there. So slowly all these new features came in, and you were always limited by the features that you sort of got from at that time Mosaic and Netscape, and then a few of the others came in. but it was driven by the possibilities that were built into the system. Then around 1998, you sort of got these CMS kinds of systems. We also built one, and it sort of stabilized, and everybody got sort of in a stable period. There were some things like Facebook and Twitter which sort of popped up, but they didn't really change the interaction model. There were more, let's say, there are different kinds of innovations. And the big innovation around 2007 was when Apple sort of introduced the iPhone, but we kind of agreed that they did not a bad job. So it was like, yes, this is how it's supposed to be, and it sort of died out quite quickly again. But now we are really into the convergence area, because now we are in 2013, 2014. As a technology guy, I can almost tell you there's almost nothing that I can't do. But I have no clue what to make, right? So we have basically all these possibilities. I can make all kinds of stuff, but we don't know which formats. Does everybody understand what I mean with a format? So Idols, for example, is a format, right? It's a television format, and also on the web you have different formats. But we have no idea what kind of formats will work in the future, so we need to experiment much more, right? We need to be able to fool around, because we have all this technology. We are not limited anymore by technology, as far as I can see, but we have no idea what will work. So we need to experiment, and we need to experiment cheaply and easily and fail fast, and all the buzzwords, I guess. And failing I'm very good at, so the way that we do it, we hold workshops. So we invite, in this case, I think it's cultural history group, so museums, I think, if my memory is correct. We invite them and we make them play around with stuff. So we let them make drawings in the normal sort of workshop way. We give them either Lego blocks or paintings or iPads, so that they can make these small animations to come up with ideas. That what we will try to do is based on the ideas, quite freely ideas. Probably in this case it was about how you could use all history content in museums. How could you put it on multiple screens? What could you do with it? Could you make an experience if somebody walks in with his own iPhone into a room with 4 screens? What could you do, right? Sort of question most likely was behind it. And well, you'll see that they somehow have to create what I would call a visual design, or at least some wireframing. And based on that we will try to develop it and then show it back to them and see if it works. So that's the way that we are approaching this problem. But you can imagine that there are many more different formats that are possible. And I just put a few on here. So yesterday you already heard that we did a TV pilot, which we are in, although maybe the toolkit can be used in other ones as well. But we have a local scenario, so that's more about what kind of applications could you do with a limited group. So a broadcast would be for everybody, right? The same content goes out to everybody. Local is much more, what could I do with a small group? Could I watch television with the family or with a few friends, right? We are watching something, and could we automatically have the same thing on the main screen? Which, by the way, I've seen very little second screen applications that allow 2 main screens, right? So you can't even watch with your friend at the same time, because most of the time there's just one main screen, which doesn't make sense to me, but anyway. But also the elderly scenario, where you use the same kind of tools to help, let's say, your grandma to view stuff on the main screen while you are controlling it from the iPad or your iPhone, right? So to jog the memory of stuff. Or you could imagine that you could use it in a classroom, right? So a teacher sort of throws out content to the students that might have to react on it. So one example that we are making, and we are going to put online as an example in the toolkit, is actually to give presentations. So you just have presentations, and I can basically send you the slide, but you all have a finger, which is nice. And you can put your finger on the screen, and the dot will appear on the main screen, and we can ask you questions. So we could put up a slide, do you agree with me, yes or no? And you will see all the dots going to the correct position, which is really funny. So you can imagine that if it's a tough question, that people start doubting, you see all sort of dots going left and right, right? It's a very, very simple tool, and you can imagine that you can just put in your own slides. And I gave this assignment last week to a developer, a new developer I have to add, and he's almost done with it. So that's something that the starting out developers should be able to make in a few days, right? That's the aim that we are going for. So the broadcast I already explained. It's more aimed to everybody's watching the same content, but even then you can sort of figure out what kind of new things could we do there, right? For example, what I would love to do is to flip it around, because I think indeed most people, when they're saying that 80% is using the iPad while they're watching television, My guess, most of them are either on Twitter or Facebook or doing something else. So why don't we put these important signals on the screen, right? That might be one, at least then they are watching the big screen and they're not watching the small screen, right? That might be one interesting thing we could start playing with. You can also imagine that you even if the broadcast is for everybody, that you try to put on an extra layer just with your friends, right? I know that I've been doing that for 15 years. We go on something called an old IRC chat, and if it was an important program, we would just make fun of things in the text window, well, right? That sort of thing. Another thing which is very interesting for oral history and for television stations is long form video, right? So people are in the train, they are watching for 5 minutes. Do you approach them again? Does the program automatically continue when they open up their computer at home? Do you try to re-engage them again and continue telling your story? And how would that work? How could you move the story from one moment to the next moment, from one device to another device, right? So these are the kind of applications we want to at least not all build in the TV pilot, but at least make a toolkit and provide examples so that during the hackathon people can start fiddling with these ideas. Maybe it's only a small element, but that's what we are trying to enable within this project. So miscellaneous, I just put one because it's really popular when I show it all the time. So this is, for example, one where, again, developers need a hello world example, so that simple example so that they can get going. This is one that we all added to the toolkit, where you have one picture, and every time you put a new iPad there, you can sort of extend the screen and then move it around. It's totally useless, but people love to play with it. There's also another one which has a little car on top of it, and the little car stops when it doesn't have a screen anymore, so you can put a new screen there and the car will continue driving along. Again, these are technical examples, but you can see you can also make maybe some art installation or some free thinking. So basically my core question would be, what kind of applications could you make with the screens around you in the context and with the content you are using? And we will try to make it easy for developers to make these applications. So how am I in time? Oh, I'm perfectly on time. So now we're going to the technology part and we're going to show you code. Now I'm going to show you code not because I assume that everybody will understand this, but just to give you an idea how difficult it is, because I totally understand that it's difficult to understand or it's difficult to judge if something is easy or difficult to develop, right? So I want to at least give you a hint. It's this much code and it's not like this much code, right? So the toolkit, by the way, when you're talking about the licenses, we are happy that we are done with the licensing. Everything we are doing is on GitHub, and we are also developing in the open. That means every time that we change something, you can see it right away. There are two products, and everybody kind of knows what GitHub is. So it's a repository where you can find open source software. And like I said, we develop in the open, and everybody can always get the copy that we have, including all the mistakes that we are making. There are two products. The first one is called Springfield, which is a massive platform. You can download it because that's what open source means. I doubt if you ever get it to work. So that's still something that we are working on. But we don't want you to basically run this platform yourself. The second product is a multi-screen toolkit. And what we do is we have a system that makes it easier to make these small applications and host them on our services. If you really want to, you can install the whole big software yourself, but we are guessing that most people don't want it. They just want to make the small applications, almost like making a plugin for WordPress and then install it at a service provider to be able to get going. Because installing the whole system is going to be much more complex and doesn't really gain you much if you just want to make an application. So for the developers, we are trying to remove complexity about how to do it. So how does the screen automatically find each other? How does it automatically share stuff? So just to give you an idea, the system that we now put online is about 350,000 lines of code. So you don't want to understand them all. It's about 10 books, 500 pages, double-sided printed. So please don't try to read them. We don't know what's in that anymore. We know most of the code that's in there, but it's definitely very, very big. And yeah, just to show you what we already put online. We've worked on it for a few years, the whole platform, so it's not something that we made yesterday. The server side is based for the developers, if there are developers. The server side is all based in Java and XML, which are two quite open languages. And in context, the applications that you can build with it are all HTML5 or HTTP. I'm not sure if people know what HTTP is. So basically HTTP is a standard that you can make applications on smart television and set-top boxes in Europe. So for RBB, for example, we are using this system to be able both to do it on your iPhone and your iPad and your desktop, which is HTML5, but it will automatically convert to HTTP so it also works on your smart television. Right? Does that make sense? So, but the normal parts, if you talk to developers or you are a developer, you hear things like HTML, JavaScript, style sheets. These are also the words that we are using. We are just sort of packaging it up and helping you along to make it easy to deploy all these and communicate over all these screens. And like I said, if I'm explaining it too complex, don't worry about it too much. Just I want you to remember that it is possible already to find toolkits out there to allow you to creatively think about what you could do with multiple screens. So I have three technical pictures which will go even faster because I think A is needed. And I just wanted, again, for the developers if they're out there, that they can see a little bit where they're thinking. But I will explain this picture in an easy way, I hope. So think about if you have a Windows machine or a Mac machine, right? And you are using, let's say, your mail program, right? It's not that if you hook up, like we are doing now, a second monitor, that you have sort of a second application. It's not like this is my main screen mail program and this is my second screen mail program, right? The software is smart enough to say, hey, I have two screens. Now I can do something with it. That's basically what this picture is trying to say. Let's make it for the developers so easy that it's just like if somebody comes in. So if somebody, let's say Marco logs in from his place there. No, you're not allowed to do that. But if you would log in to a URL, then my software will say, hey, I have a new screen. It's about this big and it's sitting over there. And maybe it even knows that he's called Marco and he's Italian. I will get this information. And from that moment, my application can also say, well, let's put this on his screen. So a good example would be, let's say, put this piece of information on everybody's screen who has an iPad and is a teacher. That would be a command that you can do in this toolkit. And the toolkit will take care of the rest of it. So you can sort of define roles between, let's say, a teacher, a main screen, and the students. Right? So that's what is tried to do in this picture. The second is probably a little bit less technical in explaining, is that in my opinion, second screen will also be something that is evolving, right? So imagine you're sitting on the couch and you're watching television, which is the M1, the main screen, and somebody else also turns the television on, so now we have two main screens, right? Then somebody opens his iPad, so now we have an S1. We have one iPad, but let's assume that you do this, open, close, open, close, open, close. What do I do with the content? How does that move about? Now somebody else comes in and sits on the couch. Now I need to decide, well, I was putting subtitles on my main screen, but my mom comes in and she doesn't like subtitles, so I now move them to the iPad, or do I have two different sort of subtitles on the iPads and one there? What happens if somebody walks away again? Then, so you can sort of see that it's not even a fixed situation, but it's sort of a flowing sort of arrangement. That's what I find quite interesting to play with, because I have not seen many people doing it. And for example, in a museum would be a good example. We are now fiddling with an idea for a historical museum in Amsterdam, where we have multiple screens and people walking in. So what would you do if more screens come in and more screens come out, and somebody wants to introduce a new person from this is Second World War information, somebody wants to bring in a new entity, so a new person. Do you show it on the main screen, and if the person goes away, do you pull it away again? How does that, what kind of fun stuff could you do? So the last picture, I think it's the last picture, is just to reinforce that we are trying to sort of also help not only automatically communicate, but we are trying to put it automatically, allow it to be done on multiple devices. So we are just supporting desktop, phones, or Apple, Android phones. And I didn't put it on here, which is kind of a mistake. especially because it's a deliverable for the project, but that's okay. Because it should also have a picture where you show this HB TV, so the smart television can also be done. So we see the world as HTML5 basically, and we assume that slowly everything will become HTML5, and when it's not, we will try to sort of bend it a little bit and put it on the screen anyway. So that's kind of what we are doing. Oh, there's another, sorry, 2 slides. And I want to repeat this. Of course, this is a picture which you probably can't read, which was my plan. There's a lot of tools in there to allow you to develop and deploy on our site or on other content provider site. And it will automatically keep version control and have multiple versions. And the whole goal of this is not to have you install the whole thing, but to give you quite a realistic programming model where a starting developer just coming out of school should be able to get something up and running and at least host it on our place and have multiple versions and turn stuff on, turn off, and things like that. So there's a lot of maintenance interfaces for developers, and open source projects most of the time don't come with that much visual tools in the back end. So we are putting a lot of time into that. So for example, we are doing next week, I think, the week after that we are in Rome, and we are bringing online EU Screen, a new version, which is also using this toolkit. There's also all kinds of mobile and second screen fun in there. But if you make a mistake, you want to quickly go back to the older version, or you want to say, deploy this in the development environment, but not in the production environment. So we are also adding these types of tools there for the developers. Again, if you're developers, this is what normally kind of your application environment might look like. And the only point of the slides is nothing has changed. You will just do the whole thing. You will use your own tools. And then the code, I promised that I will show you code. 2 slides. So this is the smallest program I could make, which is called a Hello World program. So you can see it's 4 lines, which is not really that bad. So in this case it says, when I see a new screen on my URL, so you type in the URL, when a new screen comes in, put Hello World on the screen. Well, that's the program, right? And I'm showing this just to make a point that you don't need to have the 350,000 lines or understand the 350,000 lines. It's just about making the job for the developer as easy as possible, which is programming what it's all about, right? We have libraries and tools to make it easier for other developers to do stuff. So this is a little bit bigger program, already quite a real program, because in this case, and again I won't explain the code, but if you recognize it, that's fine, but it kind of says, well, if a screen comes in, and we are an HUB TV, so we are smart TV, then please put the video on it and call yourself the main screen, which kind of makes sense, right? And all other cases, because we are assuming in this case we only have 1 main screen, so let's say with your iPad you go to the same URL, it will automatically say, you are not on an HBB TV, and it will give you the controller. So what this application does is actually have a main screen and a controller so that you can do play, stop, stuff like that, right? And this is 15 lines without the comments. I had to take the comments out because otherwise it wouldn't fit on my slide, but if you download it, there are even comments in between. It's a little bit more. So again, in the future what we are going to do is, so if you're interested in this, we are in Amsterdam, especially our company or you already have a company, we are very open about trying to find more partners. So we are willing, if you're a developer, to take you into our offices, fill around for 2 days and get you going, and we will even provide access to our service in the beginning, so you can already start doing the fun stuff, the development, without having to install the whole system. Like I said, we are still working on the wiki pages, we are working on videos. There are several deliverables both in EU Screen and Link TV about this topic, which you have to write anyway, so that's kind of nice that you already have them. We are adding more companies, and we will probably end up, my guess, in a year or 2 years, setting up a foundation to make sure that the software itself is even independent from the Noterik company. I didn't tell the others in the company that I put this on the slide, but I did put it in the deliverable. But at least we are making our money in supporting this and making new tools for this. The money model is not in any way try to close the software itself. So this was my presentation, so hopefully it was interesting and quick enough.